Today on episode 11, I have the pleasure of interviewing childhood friends and business partners Nick Torday and Marcus Hill from Bauer Collective. We get to hear how their passion for sustainability and waste reduction inspired them to build a business that tackled household waste with a unique refill and replenishment model. They've curated some of the top brands in Europe as well as launching their own brand to provide an alternative way to shop for the conscious consumer. Stay tuned as we talk about Indiana Jones, the Mariana Trench, the 1950s lifestyle, and much more. What if the smallest decisions we make as business owners and consumers could have a lasting impact in the world? This is what we question here at the Business of Universal Kindness podcast. If you're curious about living more naturally by choosing products that are kind to humans, the planet, and the creatures that we share it with, then keep listening. And if you're operating a business that creates these types of products, then pull up a chair because we're about to find out what it takes to build a company that makes money and does some good in the world too. I'm your host, Sarah Henson, email strategist to mission-driven e-commerce companies. Join me on this journey as we explore what it means to take radical responsibility for our choices while also making an impact that can change the world. Because universal kindness is everybody's business. Okay, hi Nick and Marcus, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Hi Sarah.
Hi Sarah, good to be here.
Good. So before we get started, I always like to ask my guests a question about what they wanted to be as a kid, because it just gets things started. So Nick, why don't you start us off with that?
So I'm afraid, conforming very much to gender stereotypes, I definitely wanted to be a professional footballer and also a rock star. So sadly, neither of those futures have come to pass. But I like to think that trapped inside me is still an outstanding football talent and rock star.
All right. And what about you, Marcus?
So I wanted to be an archaeologist as a child, and that was clearly from watching Indiana Jones, my favorite movie franchise, and obsessively pretending to be Indiana Jones as a child. So I think I didn't even know what an archaeologist was beyond, swinging on vines in the jungle and shooting Nazis. But that's what I wanted to do. And I did actually succeed in that ambition because I studied archaeology at Edinburgh as my undergraduate degree. So.
Oh, wow. That's quite a change then from what you do now. So tell me, how did you two meet? Was it at university?
No, we actually met at school. So we were friends at school.
Okay, so you've been how long have you known each other then?
Well, that would be giving away our age, but
30 years almost.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your kind of journey then into creating this business that you have together. You're called Bauer Collective. So if you just, Nick, why don't you kind of tell the listeners exactly what you do in Bauer Collective and then how that came to be?
Sure. So Bauer Collective, we're a sustainable home and personal care product business. So the mission that really drives our entire business is allowing our customers to create a sustainable home and to primarily to eliminate consumer waste, plastic waste coming out of their home and ending up in landfill or incineration or the natural environment. So that's really the sort of the DNA that's hard coded into Bauer Collective. And I guess we can talk a little bit more about the business itself in a bit, but the sort of backstory is I used to run a technology consultancy, and a lot of our clients were in the sustainability arena. So we work with people like the UN, with WWF, with Greenpeace, with a whole bunch of sort of big global conservation organizations, which was great and was very enlightening. And on one of the big campaigns we worked on was around marine plastic waste, and that sort of lit a flame within me about this issue. And then also as a father of young kids, I just became more and more aware of how much stuff was going through the house and was being chucked out, and then got more and more into trying to understand recycling and how dysfunctional and broken it is. So yeah, long story short, I sort of recognized that there was some big problem here, and we weren't creating the sort of world that I necessarily wanted my kids to grow up in, which has been sort of desecrated by all of the environmental issues we face, but primarily the one that we're interested in is consumer waste, plastic waste. So I left. Sorry, just to sort of fast forward, left that business a couple of years ago, and the first person I called was Marcus, and he will sort of pick up the story from there.
Yeah. So Marcus, why didn't you tell us a little bit about your background before you got that call from Nick?
Yeah, so I had studied sustainability. I worked for an environmental consultancy briefly, and then I founded, off the back of that, a bioplastic packaging business called London Biopackaging, and we made biodegradable plastic packaging for the food and catering industry. And that was a business that I built over a number of years, and ultimately sold to a FTSE 100 company called Bunzl. And so I kind of have long been interested in sustainability, in sustainable packaging, and kind of using business as a force for good, and as a sort of way to tackle social and environmental problems. And so yeah, Nick got in touch with me, because he was interested in a business that would tackle plastic waste, and he knew my background at London Biopackaging. And so yeah, we started exploring different ideas, really, and different business models that could do something about the plastic waste crisis.
So as a case of, you both had this passion for reducing waste in some way, and you tried to figure out what business you could actually start that would harness that passion and do something about it? Or did you always know that you were going to create the Bauer Collective as we know it now?
I think it was the former, really. We identified the problem, and we had a passion to do something about it, but we weren't completely sure how it was going to work. So we did quite a lot of kind of R&D into different business models, including a data platform to provide information about the plastics value chain. We looked at a reusable packaging business for the food industry, and spoke to companies like Ocado about developing a reusable platform for food packaging, before kind of landing and honing in on Bauer Collective as it is today.
So what was it about the idea behind Bauer Collective that you thought, yes, this is what we want to do?
Well, I think it was so Marcus has sort of really clearly outlined the various avenues we explored, and a lot of it for us was about barriers to entry, and also how can we focus in on creating the biggest possible impact. So a lot of the market research and customer research that we did demonstrated that a lot of us, when we see the images of these river estuaries and marine environments in Southeast Asia and around the world, and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch full of waste, we get very angry with the big corporations, the plastic producers, the petrochemical businesses, but actually it's us, the consumers, that are directly accountable, if you like, for generating that waste. We're the ones buying the products, the single-use disposable products, and disposing of them. So it was really honing in on that consumer interaction, and really what Bauer does is it provides an opportunity for people to shop differently, to live differently, without in any way compromising the quality of the products and the quality of life that they enjoy. So that was really how we ended up where we were. And like Marcus said, we looked at reusable food packaging, but it was very, very problematic in a number of ways, not least supply chain challenges, non-standardization of packaging, EU food safety legislation. So there were lots of reasons why we didn't go down that road in the end.
So I'm a consumer and I come to your website. What is it exactly that I'll find there? I mean, obviously I do know, but I'd love for you to explain to the listeners exactly what it is you provide for them.
The way we like to describe it is that we've got all of your non-food household products covered. So it's our primary categories are home and personal care. So all of your cleaning products, and your bathroom products, right through to skincare, and also some other elements of the kitchen like food storage. Really all the areas where you would traditionally be buying products that are problematic in terms of both sort of toxicity within the household, but also in terms of the waste that they generate. So yeah, it's those core home and personal care categories. So you come to our website, you fill your basket with the products that you need, and we have this model called replenishment, which is like a variable subscription model. So what that means is, for us as consumers, I don't know, Sarah, if you sometimes experience the same thing, that you just kind of run out of stuff that you need and then you sort of panic buy. So whether that's your washing up liquid or your toilet roll or what have you. So the way our replenishment works is, you set these variable subscriptions. So you might want to get your washing up liquid, toilet roll and toothpaste every month, but then you might want to get your bathroom cleaner, shampoo and conditioner every 2 months. So you can set that frequency based on the sort of rate of consumption in your household. So then you complete your basket, and then of course complete your transaction rather, and then you're also then part of our closed loop reuse and refill packaging system. So this is the system that we've designed from the ground up that means that you never have to throw any packaging away. You actually buy these dispensers for life, Bauer Collective dispensers for life on our platform, and then you fill them up with our refill pouches. And when the pouches are empty, you simply box them up in a prepaid returns envelope and send them back to us, where we sterilize them, refill them and redistribute them into the market.
So it's kind of a circular economy there in terms of not creating waste, but also the fact that your products are environmentally friendly, so they're not going to be damaging the environment and things like that. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, yeah.
So the basis behind it, if you've brought a lot of brands together, how did you do that in the beginning? You've done all your research, you've essentially decided this is the business model you're going for, and you need to get a lot of brands on board with you to be able to launch. What did that look like in terms of how many brands did you needed on board before you could launch, all of that kind of thing? What did that look like in the beginning?
We started with a small range which we're building the whole time, and we're onboarding new sustainable brands the whole time. We launched this month, for instance, a couple of new brands like TOTM, which is a sustainable period care brand, and we're also developing our own brands as we sort of build our range so that people will be covered across the whole of non-food. And we the way we started really was by crafting what we call the Bauer standard, which is our vision for the standard of the products that we sell on the platform. And so the Bauer standard kind of starts with sustainability. So all of the products that we curate from other brands, or the products that we develop ourselves, they have to be focused on reducing waste and plastic waste. We also look at the carbon footprint of the products, and specifically where they're made. So if possible, we try and get the products made in the UK, and then the products have to have a sort of ethical supply chain and be non-toxic, and that kind of forms the sustainability element of them. But we're also really passionate about delivering products that are effective and also look good and feel good in your home. That and the sort of effectiveness of the product are also just as important to us as the sustainability. And we've tried to sort of triangulate those different things in coming up with the Bauer standard. And then, we did a lot of research and testing across different sustainable brands to curate this range that we've launched with.
So how did you find it approaching brands? Were they on board from the beginning, or did it take some convincing for them to understand the idea behind what you were trying to achieve?
I think generally brands have been super excited about what we're doing and keen to get on board, because we're providing a solution to almost their number one kind of problem with customers, which is complaints about plastic packaging waste. And any of the brands that we speak to, that is pretty high on the list of the reasons that their customers get in touch, is to complain about packaging waste, plastic packaging waste. So when we speak to brands about sort of delivering their products through our reusable packaging system, they're really excited. And for brands that are already on this journey, already delivering their products, for instance, in a plastic-free format, and a lot of the products on our website are just inherently plastic-free. So, for instance, we have a great range of deodorants in a sort of cardboard format, and which is kind of readily recyclable anywhere. Those kind of brands again are super excited, because we're a channel that's really focused in on this demographic of people who are interested in tackling plastic waste in their home, and it makes complete sense to brands like that to be selling through us.
Regarding your own brand, then, what made you think, okay, we're bringing all these brands together, which is great, but we also need our own brand to market?
That was always part of our strategy, that we want the Bauer brand to be synonymous with sustainable living in the home. And in order to do that, we wanted to have a credible range of Bauer brands, cornerstone Bauer brands. So our cleaning range is Bauer brand, and that's our sort of hero products, if you like, our cleaning products and our reusable dispensers. So that's where we're beginning, and we're actually developing new ideas all the time. We launched a product development community on Facebook. And we invited 500 customers to join that group. And within 24 hours, about 120 customers had signed up, which was amazing, and just shows how sort of highly engaged and passionate our early customer base is. So that group of people are now actively involved in co-creating our product roadmap with us, and testing samples and thinking about formulations and et cetera. So that's a really exciting model for us to be building out our own brand range.
You've obviously done a lot of research and investigation into how you can create a business that's going to be not just sustainable in the term that we know it, but sustainable in terms of a business that actually works. What trends have you seen from your customers? Because you've obviously got a close connection with your customers, especially in this focus group of yours. What have you seen trends in terms of a modern conscious consumer right today?
I think quite a lot. The conscious consumer demographic, as we perceive it, there is now this sort of mega trend towards a huge shift in consumer behaviors. And people that would never have previously engaged with this now really recognizing the scale of the environmental challenges that face our planet. So there's an awful lot of market data out there from the likes of McKinsey and IBM and others that we've been reading and analyzing. And we've done an awful lot of our own research as well to really understand that demographic. And I think you can look at various indicators like the huge proliferation in zero waste shops within, bricks and mortar zero waste stores within communities. I'm sure, Sarah, you've seen this around you where you live, and certainly down here, and in all geographies across the country, these shops have been growing exponentially. So the demand is there, and I guess what Bauer seeks to do is to meet that demand as a sort of online zero waste solution direct to people's homes. So it's a really exciting time. And I think another quick point to add is, not in any way meaning to be reductive about how serious this COVID situation is, but it is actually a time for people to be at home a lot more and to really reflect on a lot of the choices they're making. And I think we'll also see a real shift in consumer behaviors coming out of this whole experience that will also lend themselves towards people being much more conscious about how they consume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the trends I've seen, especially with the people I've been interviewing, is that consumers are going online more for their purchases, and are being a bit more aware of what their actions are in the world and the choices they make with their products. So this is a kind of quite a big question, but there is still obviously a lot more to be done in this field. What do you think it's going to take for us to really change the trajectory of humanity in terms of waste and the plastic that we see in the ocean, and the marine life that has been devastated by all of this? What do you see or hope is for the future?
My hope is, or I suppose, as an entrepreneur and as someone who likes to try and find sort of practical solutions to things, I think closed loop business models and circular economy business models have to be the future. And I suppose, my hope is that there will be a sort of proliferation of similar business models, and that the existing consumer goods companies and multiple retailers will begin to, and they already are obviously looking into this, but I think they've got quite a long way to go in developing their own sort of circular economy business models. But we've seen that there's a huge demand for this, that our consumers want to tackle the plastic waste crisis. They want sustainable products, they want more sustainable homes, and they're really willing to engage in new business models to do that. So it's really up to business, I would say, to respond and to give consumers those opportunities to look after the planet and make their homes more sustainable.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, like, if you only have to cast your mind back to the 1950s and 60s, and this idea of as what is now sort of known as the circular economy was totally widespread in consumer behaviors. And it's very interesting to look at the early advertising of disposable products, which happened post-war, really, when there was a surplus of plastic production facilities from the war that had a lot of product to shift. So they targeted consumers and convinced them. These were consumers that were already taking utensils, containers, packaging back to stores, to local stores for refill. So this idea of reuse and refill is this sort of novel thing is of course is not accurate. It was completely standardized consumer behavior, and then the big marketing machine and the production facilities persuaded consumers to behave otherwise, and then it was a long tail of persuading us that disposability is an acceptable way in which to engage within a market. And I think what Bauer is about, what Marcus has said, this cohort of new businesses coming through, is to really challenge that and to say it doesn't have to be that way. We can create something that is both environmentally and economically viable, that uses resources intelligently.
That's an interesting point about the 1950s. Do you think that's the kind of future for us then, that we're actually, I don't want to use the word regression, but, regressing back to our behaviors back from the 1950s in terms of use and consumerism and things like that?
I think it's not so much regression as it's sort of reigniting it, but it's now enabled with technology and innovation in a way that would never have been possible back then. So it's kind of looking backwards and looking forwards at the same time. I'm sure there's a word for that.
So in the 1950s, so that's like 70 years ago. So we became people who use disposable things, wanting everything now, everything disposable, everything, new, different things every day over the last 70 years. Do you think it will take another 70 years to kind of get ourselves into some kind of way of living that is going to basically save the planet?
I think it's really hard to put a time frame on it, and of course, you know, waste is just one component of a multifaceted environmental challenge that we face, not least, you know, carbon emissions and climate change being really fundamental within that. Will it take 70 years? I sincerely hope not, because I genuinely don't think we've got that long. I mean, Marcus talked at the beginning of the call about being an archaeologist, and I think there was is it a geologist who codified that, you know, if you you know, cut down into the seabed, you can see compacted layers of rock and silt and what have you, that help you sort of age the different epochs of human development. And I think that this geologist said there is now enough plastic sediment to have formed a layer that you know, if a geologist was to carve into the seabed 1,000 years from now, they'd call us the Plasticine age, because there's so much of this material embedded in the seabed. So in many ways you could say, well, we've already gone way too far, but it's never too late to change. I certainly hope it won't take as long as 70 years for consumers to wake up and change their behaviors, but it's not going to be easy for sure.
But it does feel like the sort of response, the public kind of understanding of the plastic waste crisis has picked up a lot of momentum over the last few years, and to a certain extent, people have only quite recently realised the extent of the problem. And you know, I think it was Richard Thompson, the professor at Southampton University, who kind of coined the phrase microplastics and did the sort of initial research on that. And that wasn't very long ago. You know, I don't know, but maybe it was. I think it's within the last 10 years. Certainly, people have woken up to, you know, based on his research and others. People suddenly realised, you know, they could see litter everywhere, but what they couldn't see was microplastics everywhere. And people have now realized that you can go to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, you know, the Mariana Trench, and take a sample of water and it'll have plastic, microplastics in it. It needs, you know, a multi-pronged approach across, you know, all sorts of different, you know, across government, business, etc. And so that's not going to happen quickly, and what works in one country doesn't work in another. So, you know, it's
to illustrate that with an example, you know, Bauer is very much focused. Our focus is on UK and Europe. We think those are the territories where we can create the greatest impact. But like Marcus says, what works here won't necessarily work elsewhere. And we know from our research that, for instance, in a lot of Southeast Asian countries, people can't afford to buy products in sort of bulkier containers, i.e. bigger volumes. So a lot of the time they're buying detergents, cleaning products, personal care products in plastic sachets, which are cheaper, they're easier to transport, they're sold in street stalls and local markets. And of course, they're an absolute nightmare in terms of waste, non-recyclability, waste collection and management. And they cause huge social and environmental problems in those territories. So, you know, that's just one example of how you know, like Marcus was saying, it's incumbent upon big business, government, policymakers, innovative businesses to come together to solve problems in all sorts of different places.
Essentially, we need more people like you guys then to be, you know, creating startups that are, you know, one step at a time, creating solutions to these problems. So if there is someone listening to this who's got an idea, who thinks that they could make a difference in the world with an idea, a product that's going to change or make an impact in the right way, have you got any advice? I mean, how did you get your business launched? I mean, what did it take to go from your idea to actually getting your brands on board? You know, did you have to put a lot of investment in it? Was it, did you get funding? Those kinds of things. What did it take to get that business idea launched?
Wow, it's difficult to know where to start with that one. No, we self-financed for a while. We did a lot of the sort of research and R&D off our own backs. And then we were very fortunate to be backed in our first round of funding by a group called Founders Factory, who were born out of the team that built and sold lastminute.com. So one of the great sort of e-commerce entrepreneurial success stories of the big dot-com boom at the turn of the century. And they're a fantastic fund who've backed us with cash, but also with people. So we've been very fortunate to have access to the very skilled and diverse team for the last 6 months. And that's just been phenomenal for us in terms of helping shape the early direction and growth and thinking behind the business. So yeah, look, I think Marcus and I we were pounding the pavement a lot. We were meeting a lot of people. We were refining our idea. We're speaking to customers all the time, taking a very sort of customer-centered approach to defining what it was we were going to do. And we worked really hard to get in front of some people that could back that idea, and that got us up and running.
I think that's next. Yeah, put his finger on it there about being really customer centric, and I think that's really important that when someone has a bright idea, that they then get it in front of people who are going to pay for it and try and validate that someone's going to pay for it, because you can do a lot of work, but then when the rubber hits the road and you're trying to get people to pay for your bright idea, if they won't, then obviously it's not gonna succeed. And I'm an advocate of a sort of MVP approach, where you build a minimum viable product to sort of test and validate your idea, and try and get whatever you're doing off the ground in the most lean way possible, that will prove and show that people like your idea, and that they like the proposition, and that they're going to put their hard-earned cash forward in return for your proposition. And then once you've shown that, you can really go to town and have confidence to invest your own time and money, or to raise money from others to help build that business.
When you got launched then, what was your plan in terms of marketing channels to use? Because obviously you've spoken to customers beforehand, and you've probably got you had your group of 500 people that you were using for your research and everything. How did you get in front of more people to get people to know about what you were doing?
Well, our marketing strategy really fundamentally is centered around the idea of community, and leveraging the existing conversation that's already going on around there, around all the issues we've talked about in this conversation, around the waste crisis, around sustainability more broadly, and people have a need to talk about how they interact with that on a daily basis in their lives. So that's what our product development community is about. That's what we do across social media. That's what we do via email, through all of our channels. We're just building this conversation around what sustainable living feels like. And one of our mantra is, sustainability is a journey, not a destination. So not sort of beating people up, but just helping, Bauer sort of enables you to just step by step go on that journey. So we were very fortunate in having lots of great press coverage early doors. So we were in the Sunday Telegraph, the Independent, and we had a double page feature on Bauer in the Times.
Wow.
It was huge for us. So, and again, it was just reinforcing this idea that we were really doing something that resonated with consumers, and people were excited about. So we've had a lot of good organic traction, and then of course we're also doing performance marketing across paid acquisition as well.
You mentioned having that conversation and using email. I mean, I know that you have a very robust welcome series, because I signed up to your list, and that because that's my area of expertise. How have you found that has helped your business in terms of engaging and connecting with your, I'm using air quotes, audience or customers?
Yeah, I think it's, for us, it's a really important part of what we do. As Nick says, our strategy is to sort of build this community that you then don't have to pay to communicate with, and we think that's a worthwhile thing to do anyway, because our customers want to create more sustainable homes, and they want to speak to each other and to us about that, to get advice, to get suggestions, to get input on that, but it does create an opportunity for Bauer to be front of mind and for us to communicate to people without having to pay for it, which you do obviously if you're spending money on Facebook. So having if someone signs up to be part of our community, we want to make sure that there's a really strong email flow, and that we're communicating who we are to them, that we're giving them the opportunity to sign up to Bauer and start using our products and our service. Without an email flow, a robust email flow, if you'd just be losing that opportunity. You wouldn't be really sort of connecting with people in an automated way, which you need to do if you're going to do stuff at scale.
I love the way you talk about community, because that's what it's all about in terms of like-minded people who are wanting to make a difference. Even if it is a consumer just making a different choice, the community is a big aspect of that. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time, because I know things are very busy for you right now. Do you have a message that you'd like to leave the listeners with, whether that's in terms of reducing waste or starting a business or anything like that? What would you leave our listeners with? My
message would be sort of to repeat something that we said earlier, which is to think of sustainability as a journey, not a destination. It's about sort of continuous incremental improvements, and you really don't need to feel guilty or ashamed that you're not doing enough or what have you. But as long as you're just aware and making sort of constant incremental improvements that fit within your life and don't ultimately compromise the quality of your life, but all go pushing us in the right direction towards making better choices, then that's what Bauer Collective is all about, is being the partner that enables you to go on that journey.
I love that. That's an amazing way to think about it. And where can people find you online then if they want to learn more about you?
So it's bauercollective.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining me, Marcus and Nick.
Pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
You've been listening to the Business of Universal Kindness podcast with me, Sarah Henson. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe and leave a review so that more people can find it and join us on this journey. Find the show notes and more episodes of this podcast at sarahhenson.co.uk/podcast. Music is by Studios On It from Audio Jungle.